Sa mga panahong ito, ngayon malapit ng July, dapat ang mga bata nasa classroom na nag-aaral, masaya, inihahatid ng mga magulang, but all these things at this point in time, wala.
Na kung saan sumalakay sa atin ang COVID-19 disease.
Paano enrollment? Paano pag-aaral? Sinong tutulong sa amin? These are worries very normal to parents like us. Paano ng mga batang to?
Gusto po namin i-remind ang mga ating mahal na magulang na sila po ay magtiwala sa Department of Education.
At wag po tayong magpatalo na because of this pandemic, ihinto po ang pag-aaral ng ating mga anak.
Ginagawa po namin yung lahat ng aming makakaya para na sa ganon ay tuloy-tuloy po ang enrollment po ng mga estudyante po. Gumagamit po kami ng mga Learner Enrollment and Survey Form o yung tinatawag nating LESF para na sa ganon makapag-fill up na po yung mga magulang na wala pong access pagdating po sa internet.
Para doon sa coordination namin sa mga stakeholders, particularly doon po sa pagbibigay ng mga Learners Enrollment and Survey Form, pumupunta po kami by barangay.
Yung boxes na dinala sa mga barangay hall, na yung mga hindi nakapag-enroll ngayon ng online, doon ngayon idinadrop yung mga enrollment form ng mga bata. At ang gagawin ng barangay, dadalhin ngayon sa school. At yung mga schools ang magko-collect.
Masasabi namin na kami ay may kahandaan sa mga iba-ibang modality na gagamitin natin dahil hindi nga pwede ang face-to-face instruction.
Doon sa online ay nahihirapan po sila. So meron naman tayong tinatawag na modular.
Kami po sa DepEd ay hindi tumitigil kung paano namin may pagpatuloy ang edukasyon ng inyong mga anak. Kaya po, magtiwala lamang po tayo sa DepEd.
Thank you sa DepEd kasi kahit nasa pandemic tayo.
Marami naman pong paraan na makapagpatuloy ang ating pag-aaral sa ating mga kabataan.
Ang ating kalusugan, ang ating safety, ang binabalanse natin.
Kami ay nananawagan. Alam namin na ang prosesong ito walang sapilitan. Ang prosesong ito ng enrollment ay ang final decision ay nasa parents, nasa guardians, at saka sa mga bata mismo. By the way, marami din kaming requests ng mga bata mismo na nagpapadala ng mensahe sa Secretary of Education na nagsasabing gusto ko nang mag-aral, gusto ko nang bumalik sa school, gusto ko nang ipagpatuloy ang aking learnings. Mga bata mismo ang nagsasabi. Sa mga lugar na kung halimbawa sobrang dami na sila at saka umaapaw na sa mga quota ang mga batang na i-enroll, maraming parents na nakikiusap, pwede bang i-accommodate yung aming anak? Pwede bang i-accommodate yung aming apo? Kaya kami ay nakikinig sa mga pananawagan ito ng mga parents. At kami din sa DepEd, nanawagan din sa mga parents. Kayo ang magdedesisyon, sa inyo ang desisyon, nasa inyong kamay ang kinabukasan ng inyong learners. Maraming salamat.
Hello, hello! Magandang umaga sa atin pong mga kaguruan, estudyante, mga magulang, mga ka-DepEd, at sa mga katuwang ng DepEd sa basic education, at sa lahat po ng nanonood sa atin ngayong umaga. What time is it? Yes, it's Research O'Clock. Kamusta po kayo? Maulan ba dyan? We hope po that you are all well and safe at the comforts of wherever you are, whether nasa bahay, nasa paaralan, or nasa trabaho. Welcome po at magsama-sama po tayo ngayong umaga para sa ating third episode ng Virtual Research O'Clock. And we are live po at the DepEd's Philippines Facebook page. Ako nga po pala si Yumi, mula sa Policy Research and Development Division ng Planning Service, ang inyong moderator for this morning. And together with me is Michael, na mula rin po sa Planning Service. Hello Michael, magandang umaga. What time is it?
It's Research O'Clock, of course. Good morning po sa lahat. We welcome you to this third episode at hopefully po mag-iinit po ang ating maulan na umaga.
Ayan, thank you very much, Michael. Medyo maulan nga dito sa amin ngayon, so sana maging okay yung mga internet connectivities natin sa mga bahay-bahay natin and all. Again, welcome po sa ating 13th Research O'Clock at ikatlong episode naman ng virtual mode. So sinimulan po natin ang Research O'Clock noong July 2018 at before, ginagawa natin siya every 2 months. Ngayon po, at dahil na rin sa epekto ng pandemya, in-adjust po natin yung Research O'Clock na meron po tayong dalawang main adjustments na ginawa. Yung una pong pagbabago ay ginawa natin siyang virtual at ang pangalawa naman po ay finocus natin yung mga presentations sa principles ng continuing education in time of emergencies while of course sustaining the quality of the learning deliveries. So with that, we can further complement the implementation of our Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan or mas kilala natin siya sa BELCP at ang Sulong Edukalidad. So for this time, our virtual Research O'Clock is conducted every Wednesday for 5 weeks. And now we are on our 3rd week, so pakibook na po ang inyong mga Wednesdays for the next 2 weeks at 9 a.m., okay? At magsama-sama po tayo sa mga susunod na linggo pa. Pero, bakit nga po ba tayo nag-Research O'Clock? Ayan, meron po tayong 3 main reasons kung bakit tayo nandito ngayong umaga. Ang una po ay para mas maisulong natin ang paggamit ng research results as a tool and as evidence in our decision making and also sa paggawa, sa pag-formulate at pag-adjust ng mga programa, polisiya, plano, lalo na po ngayon that we will be implementing our respective learning continuity plans. Sunod naman po, nais nating maging information bridge ang Research O'Clock for our DepEd offices to learn more from the research results, experiences, and insights of our researchers or resource speakers from different sectors supporting the basic education and hoping also that if applicable, we can apply these lessons in our respective fields. And yung last reason naman po natin, ay we wanted to promote open discussions and continuous learning experiences for education leaders, researchers, policymakers, and educators in the basic education. So not just only from our resource speakers, but we wanted to share the insights from all our stakeholders po. So lahat po tayo ay welcome na mag-share ng insights or practices to further improve our basic education delivery. Ayan. So, sino po sa atin ang mga naka-attend na ng Virtual Research O'Clock noong nakaraang 2 linggo? If yes, present, complete attendance.
Ayan, ako rin.
Please share with us in the comment section kung pang-ilang Virtual Research O'Clock na po itong na-attendan ninyo, and also if you could share the lessons na rin na tumatak sa inyo in the past 2 Virtual Research O'Clock. Again, you may send it or you may comment it down below, down in our comment section. Okay? So during, may intro pa ng music na dumadaan sa kalye. So during our first episode of the Virtual Research O'Clock, we explored the different distance learning modalities, and it was followed by the discussion regarding the inclusion in distance learning for the 2nd episode last week. So, tinanong po doon, distance learning na tayo ngayon. Posible pa ba ang inclusivity sa distance learning? So, last week, we were joined by Teacher Lutze from the College of Education ng UP Diliman and Miss Shera from Save the Children Philippines. We also heard insights and reactions from our teacher representative, Sir Jomel from Occidental Mindoro, and Mami Michelle, our parent representative. So during our forum last week, they shared to us that learning crisis is not new. Even before the pandemic, meron na tayong learning crisis na kinakaharap. It's just that mas kailangan lang nating paigtingin yung mga basic education programs natin this time to further promote and ensure inclusivity in the basic education. So, they were also able to relate to us in the simplest way the importance of determining the individuality of students through 2 vessels of water. So example, just like these 2 glasses of water, let's take it for example na sila yung mga learners natin. These learners might be in the same grade level, but they have different characteristics. And of course, different characteristics requires different learning needs. Yes. So hindi natin pwedeng i-generalize na porket nasa same grade level po tayo, ang ating mga estudyante ay pare-parehas na rin sila ng mga kailangan nila. And also, naibahagi din nila sa atin yung tip para mas maging more fun and interesting sa mga anak natin, sa mga anak at mga estudyante natin ang distance learning, which is incorporating the lessons in the daily activities of our learners. Like example, pag-uutusan nating bumili or magluto and all yan, pwede nating i-apply dyan ang mga simple lessons sa ating sa daily lives nila. And further, we further understand and appreciate yung kasabihan na it takes a village to raise a child. Kasi po, in this distance learning, we all have our respective roles to play here to make distance learning more inclusive and more responsive to the needs of our learners. Indeed, nasagot din natin yung tanong kung posible ba yung inclusivity sa distance learning. And indeed, inclusivity in distance learning is possible if only we are open and willing to help one another. And further, sa latter part naman po ng program natin last week, nagkaroon din tayo ng open forum kung saan na-emphasize yung strengthening the children's capability building efforts, shifting to inclusivity as a way of life, and also the inclusivity of the carers and parents, and including them or upskilling them to become partners in education delivery. So, kung hindi nyo po napanood ang ating first at second run ng Research O Clock, wag po kayong mag-alala. Just visit the DepEd Philippines Facebook page at hanapin nyo lang po doon yung first and second episode ng ating Research O Clock para mapanood nyo po at para mas matutunan, ma-familiarize din po kayo, para mas maengganyo rin kayo na hindi tayo dapat matakot sa distance learning, because we should take it openly to ensure na the learning continuity would continue. And also, during our open forum po last week, yung isang nag-emerge na tanong ay kung paano ba magagabayan yung isang mag-aaral na nakakaranas ng pangamba at takot ngayong panahon ng pandemya. Alam naman po natin, biglaan tong pandemya na to, walang nakapag-prepare. So, not only the adults experience these anxieties, but also our learners. So, ngayong umaga po, sasagutin natin yan. And for the third episode of our virtual Research O Clock, we will talk about the psychosocial support needed by the learners in adapting with the distance learning. Pero, ano nga po ba ang ibig sabihin ng psychosocial support? At paano ba natin masusuportahan yung mga anak at estudyante natin sa aspetong ito? Kasi po, pag narinig natin yung salitang psychosocial, parang masyadong technical, ang deep, ang hirap niyang intindihin kung from the word itself. Sabi nga po last week, importante na mas kilala natin yung learners at ano ba yung mga learning needs nila para mas makapag-participate pa sila sa distance learning. So hopefully, with the presentations later, we will be able to understand and appreciate it so we can further address the needs of our children and learners appropriately. So please do create watch parties, share our live stream video to your Facebook profiles and share it to your networks so we can reach larger audiences. And together, let us learn, understand, and be guided more about the psychosocial support needed by our learners. All right? But before we proceed to that, We are honored to be welcomed today by our Director of Planning Service, everyone, Director Roger Masapol.
Thank you very much, Yumi, for that first lecture. Thank you for the comprehensive uh, recap of what happened last week for the 12 Research O'Clock. Uh, we all know that we are in the verge or we are in the height of preparation for the opening of the school year in August 24. So the entire DepEd and the entire education sector, including the partners, are all in one direction of enabling the learning to continue starting August 24. So today's Research O'Clock is the third forum since July 28, 13th forum since 2018 of July, but third in the virtual setting. So I'd like to commend my team in the Policy Research and Development Division for conducting this series of virtual Research O'Clock to support the implementation of Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. This plan is a response plan of DepEd to make sure that education and learning will continue despite the limitations imposed by the pandemic. No? So if we recall, the first virtual Research O'Clock happened last July 15, and it was uh, very effective in explaining the modalities that will be adapted or designed for this distance learning mode, this as designed in the BELCP. In the second virtual research o'clock happened in July or last week, July 22, we talk about insights on ensuring that despite this pandemic, we still subscribe or we still support or we still promote inclusive education where everyone should be involved and no children or no child is left behind. Now we are in the third virtual research o'clock, so we are looking at discussing or learning from our experts, invited experts, on how to improve or increase our intervention for psychosocial support for learners, because we know that distance education is new. Not everyone is well versed in distance learning, including teachers. Of course, the students, they are not used to distance education. And of course, we look at how we will enable parents to support the virtual or distance learning of their kids. For the remaining session for the new season of Research O'Clock, we had topics on examining psychosocial and professional support for teachers, engaging household specifically in the distance learning. So it's very important that we engage correctly the parents and then the members of household in managing the learning of our learners starting August 24, because as I've said, this is new to all, including for parents. We hope to support our stakeholders and partners in the basic education sector in preparing for the opening of the new school year through the presentation and discussion during the series of this research forum. So Research O'Clock is a platform for discussion, continues its support to DepEd Sulong Educalidad strategic actions towards the improved and updated K-12 curriculum, a better learning environment for all types of learners, upskilled professional teachers and school leaders, and wider and deeper engagement with stakeholders for support and collaboration. So we are in the third virtual o'clock, and then I guess we were able to continuously achieve our purpose in conducting this research o'clock in supporting the implementation of Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. As an update, as of 8 o'clock today, we have reached the 80% of enrollment compared to previous year. So we hit the target, and we are still accepting enrollees as parents still, many parents, as based on the feedback, are still adamant of enrolling their kids because of anxieties and then uncertainties. But day in, day out, we are receiving continuous enrollment of children. So we have reached our target, that 80% of enrollment previously. So with that, thank you and welcome to our virtual research o'clock on learning continuity.
Ayan. Thank you very much po, Director Roger. Ayan po, no, nabanggit ni Director Roger na malapit nang mag-umpisa ang ating mga klase and we hit our target of 80% enrollees and hopefully we could further encourage parents to enroll their children po for this coming school year. And lastly, we hope that this forum will further help our teachers, our parents, and our partner organizations in the upcoming opening of classes. Ayan. Pero sino-sino nga po ba ang ating makakasama ngayong umaga? So for that, I'll turn you over to Michael para maipakilala na po ang ating mga makakakwentuhan ngayong umaga.
Maraming salamat, Yumi. So, who do we have for today para po pag-usapan yung ating pagbibigay ng psychosocial support po, no? So, we have for today, may dalawa po tayong panauhin. Yung una po ay papakilala ko na. Siya po ay si Ginoong E.C. Feingold. Siya po ay kasalukuyang Chief ng Education Section sa United Nations Children's Fund or UNICEF Philippines. Mr. Feingold, take it away.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share my screen, but someone else is presenting now. So can I share the screen now? All right, thank you so much. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Magandang umaga. It's a pleasure for UNICEF to be part of this research o'clock, and this is a very interesting topic and a very important one during these pandemic times. And I'm going to share today, this morning, a presentation with some examples from other countries and also some examples from the Philippines on what we can do to increase the psychosocial support to our learners, but also to our teachers and parents. I think we are facing very challenging times in which the social and emotional well-being of all the actors in the school is an important area that need to be addressed. And I'd like to start my presentation first thanking the Department of Education for organizing this research o'clock and also for selecting this topic. I think it was a very smart decision to discuss and to learn more for all of us on what can we do better and how we can support our students, our teachers, and the families. So we all know that COVID-19 is having tremendous negative impact in different areas of our societies and our economies, our health indicators, and also in education. So the main negative effects that are impacting our children are through morbidity and loss of life, prolonged lockdown and movement restrictions, school closures, economic impact of the crisis, uncertainty about the future, and so on. We can continue with more and more different negative impacts that this is having in all of us. And all of these negative impact also have consequences on the children's mental health. All what is happening is affecting the mental health of all of us, and of course, also of our children. So that's why we first we have to be aware of this, and we need to do different to undertake different actions to minimize these impacts on the children's mental health. So I'm not going into detail on the social ecological model, but I wanted to start with this because there are different risk factors and protective factors, and we must understand the children as the center of our concern. And there are different layers, no, around the children, no, and we have to see the different elements in their development, the cognitive area, the physical area, and of course the social, spiritual, and emotional development of our children. And among these different layers, we have the family and caregiver who are very close to the children, especially during this time of lockdowns, and also the community and the culture and society of the different countries. So all of these different layers and elements have a role to play, and there are different risks associated to protecting the child's health and mental health in particular. And there are 9 circles of support for the children, some of them more related to the child itself, but also for the family and caregivers and their communities. We have to be aware of these 9 circles of support, which includes the safe and nurturing environment, the positive relationships, the stimulation, the learning, the skills development, all of that around the child. Also from the parents and the families, the supporting caregiver well-being, so they must be in good health, and we must also protect them, the positive parenting, and the family and community support networks. And finally, around communities, there are 3 important circles of support: the well-being and protection, awareness raising, activating natural community supports, and strengthening the care systems that are working around our children. So I wanted to share a survey that we conducted in the Philippines through U-Report. That is a very interesting tool that UNICEF has been using all around the world. And we have started using this U-Report here in BARM, but also, I mean, most of these results are for BARM, but also there are results, I mean, some participants were from other parts of the country, but the majority were for BARM. So this survey was conducted between April and May, and there were between 1,000 and 1,500 respondents per survey for the different rounds that we had. Most participants were between 15 and 24 years old. The majority were female, and also, as I said, the majority were from BARM. But there is ample evidence from other countries that these results are consistent. So this is not only happening in BARM, what we will see in the next slide, but also in the rest of the Philippines and in other countries. Different surveys that have been conducted confirm these results. So first, how are they feeling? How are adolescents and youth are feeling during these pandemic times? The majority of them, more than half, responded that they are feeling worried, and also big numbers are feeling scared. So, and this is not from one survey. This is consistent, a consistent finding from all the different survey rounds that we conducted. So this is not like temporary for one round, but this is a general sentiment among our adolescent and youth, the feeling of worried and scared. Of course, some of them are feeling fine. Around 16% say they are feeling fine, but the majority are having different discomfort that we need to address. 31% of adolescents and youth are still worried. That was the last round. And 29% were feeling sad. And also there is a smaller percentage that are feeling, as I said, better. In this case, they are feeling calm. And what are the main reasons for these feelings? So one of them is the uncertainty of going back to school. They don't know what exactly is going to happen, how the distance learning is going to be. So around 22% responded on related to this topic. They are concerned about the limited financial resources. So they are seeing that there is also an economic crisis that are affecting their families, their houses. And there is uncertainty of getting employment. Now, this is for the older ones in the survey. So, but these negative effects are also related to the fear of falling ill or family members falling ill. So they are seeing that the relatives are, or people that they know, are getting affected directly by the COVID-19. They are feeling powerless in protecting loved ones and fear of losing loved ones because of the virus. lack of physical activity, social interaction with peers, consistent routines, no, may lead to increased stress and feelings of isolation, no, for children and youth. They are used to interact, to having spaces to play and to be with their friends, and now, no, especially during the strongest lockdowns, they miss that part, no. And the parents' distress also contribute to increased mental and emotional distress of the child. So we know that, for example, domestic violence increases during these times for different reasons, but so this is something that we need to be aware. And the lack of access to mental health and psychosocial support services, no, that are provided through schools. And now they are exposed to more stress and fear and stigmatization of the virus. So there are a number of different effects that we are seeing in the mental health of our children, and of course also on education. No, there is a decline in knowledge retention, no, as a result of extended time away from school, inability to support home-based learning. Sometimes parents don't know exactly how they can help, and there is some stress and anxiety about this, a widening achievement gap. So we know that the most affected in these situations are going to be, no, the most vulnerable children, those in poverty situation, those, for example, with disabilities. So in general, the inequality gap increases during this time. So that's why we need to pay special attention for those that are more vulnerable. And there are long-term negative impacts on the children's future academic and economic prospects of temporary school closure. So there are also these effects on education. And related to protection, the main concerns are, as I said before, no, confinement to strained home environment without access to safe space and the formal or informal social support that is provided at school. So they are missing that now. Increased pressure to work or contribute to household work, increased risk of early marriage and pregnancy, no, which often prevents girls from returning to school. We have seen in other pandemic in the past, for example, in Ebola, that the children who left school because of lockdowns, then they never come back, no, especially for girls. There is an increased risk of sexual and gender-based violence at household level. This is especially critical during quarantine times, and the exacerbated economic hardship and poverty due to the pandemic on the economy. So in the report, in this survey that we conducted, what are the areas in which children and youth are requesting more support? Now, there are three main areas. No, one, the top three are on financial support and assistance from the government. So this is very important to strengthening programs like the 4Ps, for example, to continue giving financial support to their families, no, and maybe special measures given the context. Mental health support is something that they are requesting, and additional relief assistance, like for example through food programs, no, because for example for the poor families, going to school is also an opportunity to access food and meals, and with the pandemic they might miss this support, no, if measures are not undertaken. So you can see more of these results on this link, but I will share the presentation so you can get access to it. So I want to share now what is happening in other countries in East Asia and the Pacific, no, in this region that we are already seeing good examples. So I'm gonna go through some of the different strategies and actions that other countries in the region are implementing to support the children's mental health. And I also will share some good examples from the Philippines at the end. So, for example, in Lao PDR, so they are conducting assessments of the mental health of the children via service, and they are using different ways to do this. Of course, online or using apps, it's a way to do it, but they are also finding ways to reach those without connectivity access. Another good example is that we have seen in Cambodia and China, PNG and Laos, is the dissemination of mental health and psychosocial support messages through radio, TV, and social media. So they are creating partnerships and finding different ways to deliver message to provide psychosocial support and mental health support for the families, for the children, and for the parents. And TV is one of the most effective ways to do this. We have seen establishment of support system in which teachers can follow up and support students through phone calls, to text messages, and other virtual platforms. So the role that teachers can play here is very important. So, and we know that this is also a stressful time for teachers. I know that some of the people who are participating on these calls are teachers. So first of all, I like to congratulate for the effort that teachers are doing, and for all the hard work that they are preparing for the new school year, and also what they did at the beginning of the pandemic when the classes were happening, and they had to find different ways to support their students. So the role of the teacher is very important, and they can play that they can implement different strategies, but also they need special support. For parents in China, we have seen good examples of providing positive parenting messages. This is something that UNICEF is planning here for the Philippines as well. So I expect to share more news and good news about this area in the next weeks. And also in Laos, we have seen establishment of dedicated mental health psychosocial support hotlines to support students. This is a very good practice. We have some examples here in the Philippines as well, but this is a support that is needed, especially in these pandemic times. Other good examples are, for example, in Vietnam, they prioritize the curriculum. This is something that the Philippines has also done. I will share a bit more on that later. And exclusion of certain tests to decrease stress. And this is also a good practice, because this is already a stressful time, and we don't want to add more stress related to test and evaluation. So we need to be strategic and smart in the way that we can evaluate the situation here, but we need to prioritize the well-being and the social and emotional well-being of our students. In some of the Pacific Islands, they have created management referral systems. So when they identify cases in which the students would need additional support, and in general, the provisional of psycho-emotional recovery on a school reopening is a very important part of the good examples and practices that we have seen in the region. Some other considerations that I wanted to share to support children's mental health include offering low-tech continued learning options to reach children with limited or no access to the internet, including via radio, TV, and SMS programming. So some students cannot get stressed because they cannot access online learning, but the good news for the Philippines is that the learning continuity plan that the Department of Education has prepared with support of other education partners, including UNICEF, includes different modalities and also different online solutions for those without connectivity. So there are different ways to reach the students, and we'll see that when the new school year begins. Also, an important consideration is to the leverage of existing community-based structures and programs to provide trusted support to children and schools as they transition, prioritizing support for students' well-being, so physical, psychological, and social and emotional support are more important than academic obligations in this crisis time. And this is important to highlight, because sometimes we are concerned about the academic impact, but also we need to be clear that more important than that for this time is to provide the psychosocial support for our students. Also, ensuring resources are made available for students to receive psychological and social-emotional support through different ways, not only online, but also offline solutions, printed materials, and etc. So this is something that the PET is doing, and UNICEF is also supporting. And finally, combating discrimination and stigmatization during these crisis times, and ensure that appropriate policies and regulations are in place. And finally, making these mental health and psychosocial support services are accessible, and that they can adapt quickly and appropriately for the specific needs of children, for example, children with disabilities, or children with no access to internet, as I said before. No, these are important considerations. Ensure inclusivity. Some population groups are going to face higher barriers to access this information, care, and support, so we need to find different ways to reach them. And of course, don't forget about teachers. They, as I said before, they are going to play an amazing role in this situation, but they need extra support in accessing to resources and also training, so they can support other teachers and staff in providing the mental health and psychosocial support for children in schools. So we know that it's better to have face-to-face school. We understand the situation doesn't allow it now, and of course, not accessing face-to-face school have negative effects and complications. But we understand that for the beginning of the school year, there are considerations in terms of health that need to be aware. But in some areas of the country, without cases of COVID-19, there could be a possibility to start reopening schools. So this should be a priority. And also, it's important to start planning for that and progressively implementing health measures that will ensure the reopening of schools. So most countries in the region are already planning for reopening schools, or some of them already reopened the schools. So we need to find ways to get to there, while we provide the educational support. So to finalize, I want to share a few examples from the Philippines, the last two slides. So first, we would like to congratulate the initiative of DepEd on the online Kuwentuhan, the DRRMS Buklatan. So the Department of Education has been organizing mental health and psychosocial support services for elementary learners all Tuesdays. So there have been different episodes. UNICEF have been participating in these spaces. Also, as I said before, simplifying the curriculum, in this case, the new MELCs, or most essential learning competencies that the PED have approved, is also a good way to face the pandemic, and including social and emotional competencies as part of it. The plan capacity strengthening of youth formation coordination is another good example. Action plan that is being prepared for teacher training on social and emotional skills development and prevention and management of bullying and violence in classroom is also a good practice. So this is something that is being supported by UNICEF, and in the next month we expect to see this in place. And also an example pre-COVID-19, so there have been ongoing efforts, for example, in Region 6, where mindfulness sessions are taught in schools by teachers. So this is something that could be converted into videos for online and offline sessions. So this is something that we see as good examples that happened before COVID-19 that could be very useful in this new context. And finally, this is a toolkit that the one that you can see on the left, on building resistance in the times of crisis for adolescents, different ways to provide support to adolescents on how they can build resilience for these COVID-19 times. And some of the elements that are included in this toolkit are related to creating awareness, building confidence, developing self-control, developing character strength, social and emotional competence, coping with COVID-19, and learning mindfulness, communication skills, contribution. So there are different areas of the social and emotional well-being of the students and their teachers that are part of this toolkit. So I wanted to share this example from the region and for the Philippines. I think this is, just to finalize, a very challenging time, and we should, and we already are, no, providing this psychosocial support for students, teachers, and parents. And as I said before, DepEd has already some strategies in place that we all must support. And I would like to finalize thanking for this kind of invitation. And UNICEF is a proud partner of the Department of Education in supporting psychosocial support strategies for all the actors in the education sector and beyond the education sector as well. Thank you so much.
Ayan. Maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat po, Easy. So, nakikita po natin talaga sa presentation ni Easy, no, na talagang mahalaga po ang edukasyon, at nakikita po natin dito na may mahalagang gampanin po ang education system sa pagpapanatili po at pagprepreserba ng mental health po ng ating mag-aaral. Nakikita natin na kailangan po ang mga bata, dahil po hinuhubog pa natin ang kanilang mga isipan at ang kanilang mga saloobin sa buhay, ay kailangan nila ng routine po. At kapag nawawasak po ang routine, katulad na nakikita natin sa pandemyang ito, ay talagang nakakasama po talaga ito sa mental health ng mga bata. So nakikita po natin sa presentation ni Easy na nakakaramdam po yung mga bata ng pag-aalala, ng takot, ng kalungkutan. At nakikita po natin dun sa resulta ng survey na ginawa ng UNICEF sa buong mundo, na hindi po nag-iisa ang mga batang Pilipino dito. Nararamdaman rin po ito ng bawat mag-aaral sa lahat ng bansa sa buong mundo. Kaya nakikita po natin na itong mga pampribadong problema ay nagiging pampublikong issue, at pag alam na natin, nare-recognize na po natin yung extent nito at kinikilala, maaari natin itong harapin po. So, makikita natin babalikan natin na kailangan po natin ibalik yung routine po sa mga bata, at gawan natin ng paraan po kahit papano hanggat sa ating makakaya na pag-ingatan po yung mental health ng mga bata by slowly reintroducing this routine into their lives, and making sure po na may safeguard po para hindi po natin sila ma-push ng sobrang hard po, or hindi po natin sila mas lalong takutin or palungkutin po sa gitna ng pandemya. Nakikita po rin natin na pwede po tayo matuto sa karanasan po ng ibang bansa sa mundo. So nakikita natin na yung mga kapitbahay po natin sa rehiyon, katulad ng Laos, ng China, ng Vietnam, marami po sila nagagawa. At kahit po dito sa Pilipinas, in our own backyard, there are many things that are being done. Not only po on DepEd's part, but on the part of UNICEF, Save the Children, and all our other partners. As you have seen po dun sa ating mga previous presentations po and episodes of Research O Clock, there is a lot being done po to ensure that we build a better normal po as we struggle po through this pandemic together. So ayun po. Thank you po. Thank you, Izzy, and we have surely learned a lot po from your presentation today. So, okay, lang po, medyo na-excite po ako kanina sa pag-introduce po ng ating speaker, at nakalimutan ko po na ipaliwanag po ang patakaran po ng ating forum. So, yun po, as you have seen earlier, dito po sa ating virtual research of luck, nag-imbita po kami ng mga organisasyon na naging partner po ng DepEd sa pagpapanatili ng quality basic education po in several areas, including po psychosocial support to our learners. Meron rin po tayong meron po tayong mga reactors. Ngayon po, meron po tayong isang magulang at saka isang estudyante na siyang magbabahagi ng kanilang mga saloobin tungkol sa mga presentation po ng ating mga presenter, at magbibigay po ng kanilang mungkahi po sa kung anong pwedeng gawin ng DepEd para maprotektahan ang mental health at psychosocial development ng ating mga learners sa gitna po ng ating pandemya. Gayunpaman po, kahit na nandito po tayo sa virtual platform na to, gusto po rin natin hikayat po lahat kayo na mag-interact po sa amin po dito sa DepEd, at makikita nyo po, pwede po kayo magtanong ng inyong question sa aming direkta po sa inyong Facebook live feed, or pwede po kung maaari pong gusto niyo manatiling anonymous po sa pagtatanong, you can post your question in our Padlet wall. So makikita niyo po yung link po. The link is padlet.com/PSPRD/QAR-O-Clock2020. Yun po yung link. Pwede po ninyo itanong ang kahit ano po, at hindi po namin i-reveal ang inyong mga pangalan. Ito lang po ang konting paalala sa ating open forum. Magtanong lang po tayo ng questions na direkta at naaayon po sa ipinamahagi ng ating mga presenter. Pakisabi po kung para kanino po yung inyong mga tanong sa simula ng inyong comment, or maaari nyo po nga isulat yung inyong tanong sa comment section ng stream na to or dun sa ating Padlet wall. So, ayun lang po. So, with those rules explained, maybe move on po to our next presenter. So, our second presenter po comes from the University of the Philippines. She is Assistant Professor Josephine Luis F. Hamero. She is an assistant professor from the Department of Family Life and Child Development, or FLCD, College of Home Economics, University of the Philippines, Diliman. Si Teach Jo po ay isa pong mother to one toddler and one preschooler. Nagtuturo po siya doon sa laboratory preschool. Yung laboratory preschool po, yung preschool po doon sa UP, meron pong mga eskwelahan doon kung saan pwede po mag-practice yung mga gusto maging guro na nag-aaral doon. At tuturo din po siya sa undergraduate po, yung mga nag-aaral ng bachelier at saka ng graduate, doon po sa mga nag-aaral ng master's po at PhD. Dati po rin, naging tutor rin po siya para sa mga students sa elementary school. Graduate po siya with a bachelor's degree in family life and child development and a master's degree in special education, both po from UP Diliman. So, everyone, may we have a virtual round of applause for Teach Jo Hamero. Ma'am.
Good morning. There you go. Okay, good morning. So today I'm going to give you some information or help you support your families and your children during this distance learning time. I am Teacher Lois, and I hope that you could address your questions to me as they are relevant to my presentation this morning. So let's begin with emphasizing that we are the new normal, and there is no basis or comparison that we could use as reference for us on how we could support our children during this time, because this is wala pa pong study na nagsasabi ganito natin sila pwedeng suportahan sa ganitong klaseng pandemic. But studies over the recent years have taught us valuable lessons on how we could support our children to live happy, successful, and fulfilled. And I believe that this is what we need to focus on the most when we support them during their distance learning. My sharing for today will include needs and key characteristics of children in their different stages of development from kinder to grade 12. And we will also look into the challenges that they might encounter during these individual stages, and what are the signs that they might need help from guardians or even professionals. Finally, we will discuss how to support or how support could be provided specifically for their age, stage, and developmental needs. So today, these are the things that concern our family. There's job loss, pre-academic and academic needs, loss of friends and loved ones, procurement of needs, problems on how we could get what we need, problems on finances, balancing work and home demands, and of course, our health and safety. But All in all, we need to remember that a child belongs to a family, and therefore, any service that we will be able to provide must focus on delivering these services to the family. Our framework, as our framework for today, we need to remember that to truly support children across all of their developmental levels and stages, we need to consider that they belong to this basic unit. And anything that occurs to and even within the family affects the child's development. Among them are their educational needs. My proposal is for us to stick to the basics, to prioritize what is most essential, not only for the child, but actually for the entire family system. The uncertainties that we live today mean that we need to allocate our resources very, very wisely. And even the energy that we spend for the continuing education of our children must consider the resource of the entire family unit. Sino yung magtuturo sa mga anak ko? Paano ko sila tuturuan? Kaya ko ba o kailangan ko ba humingi ng tulong? So we need to remember that education is about the whole family, especially now that we are in distance learning mode. It might also be a good concept for us to consider during these uncertain times the social and emotional competencies as a set of skills that we could focus on as parents and guardians and even as teachers when we give activities for the children or when we design experiences for them. In our interactions with children, we could examine how we are supporting their competencies in the areas of emotional development, self, and even their social competence. These are lifelong skills that they could benefit from, not only for their professional relations, but also for their personal well being. And this is something that they could benefit from their early years or even from their infancy all the way until their adulthood. Another concept that I would like to present that maybe we could consider as a tool for distance learning is executive function skills. These are the things that we take for granted, but we really need them not only in our personal lives, lalo na yung mga nag-work from home na parents ngayon, but also we need them very much in our future professions, even for our children. As we facilitate the continuity of learning among our children, executive function skills could serve all of us in the family well. And some of them, or at least those that I have gotten from my references, include these sets of skills: flexibility, self monitoring, impulse control, perseverance, self regulation, even time management is part function skills. These skills determine how an individual deals with challenges and how one organizes tasks in order to accomplish and efficiently. I included them in today's presentation because as guardians, it is important to be mindful of helping children develop skills that they could benefit from not only today, but also in the long run. Executive function skills like social emotional competencies could aid children in experiencing success, not only during their schooling years, but also when they develop as professionals later on after grade 12. Executive skills are tools at hand, and we could help our children go beyond mere completion of academic tasks. Hindi lang kung ano yung homework nila ngayon or kung ano yung project nila ngayon. But we are helping them to train and manage themselves to face all kinds of challenges, may it be personal challenges or professional challenges. And the last concept that I would like to share with you today that we could use as tool before we look into the characteristics of children are developmental relationships. This is something that we emphasize in FLCD. And this is something that could be useful, especially when children are schooling at home. Developmental relationships, because it helps children have that one, at least one stable and committed relationship. Developmental relationships were originally proposed as an idea by Lee and Julian. They are professors in American universities, and they they proposed this as part of early intervention programs. So basically, they proposed this as an idea for at-risk children or children with disabilities. But I thought that this is very important to us right now because all children are at risk at the moment. All children are at risk because they have lost their most important social relationships at this time, and they have to continue their academic development at home. Uh, the loss of interactions and experiences with other people outside of the home is very significant. And developmental relationships will emphasize the need for us to ensure that the child has at least one guardian, pwedeng parent, pwedeng caregiver, pwedeng ibang kamag-anak, but at least one whom he could consistently rely on when they encounter challenges that are beyond their ability. Ideally, developmental relationships must come from or must originate from their family. So they're primary caregivers at the least. Now I'm going to present to you what are the characteristics of children during their different stages in their kinder to grade 12 years. And through these characteristics, I am hoping that we will be able to understand them much better as we use and also apply the concepts that I have presented earlier, including social emotional competencies, the family as their unit, and also executive function skills and developmental relationships. So what happens during their early years? So from kinder to around grade 2, what happens to children or what are they like? So these are their characteristics. During this age, their executive function skills are developing rapidly. They are beginning to understand, pwede ko pala i-manage yung time ko. Oh, I can organize the tasks that I need to do so that I know what to do first, second, and third. These are the things that I have to attend to. So meron na silang ganong pagtingin sa sarili nila at saka sa kanilang mga abilities. The family remains to be the center of their life, but they are slowly emerging out of it. Nagkakaroon na sila ng mga friends. Meron, mama, I have a friend today. Or I made a friend today. Ang pangalan niya ay ganito. And their curiosity and interests are also encouraged by responsive caregiving. For example, if your children are very interested in superheroes o yung mga characters na napapanood nila, responsible or parent, you will notice that the more that you respect them, the more responsive or the more that they will attend to their interests. And secure relationships really do help them become motivated learners. So kung mapapansin niyo po, by secure relationship, what I would like to emphasize most of all is our mood as parents. Ang dali kung galit tayo, malungkot tayo, o mas. And this is part of the security that they gain from us. How are we feeling right now as their caregivers, as their primary caregivers, or as their primary source of developmental relationships? What are the signs that your child during these ages might need help? Number one is persistent sadness or pagtatampo. Minsan nakukuha natin na tulungan sila, bakit ka nagtatampo, bakit ka malungkot? But if it's already persistent, araw-araw na lang malungkot sila, araw-araw na lang nagtatampo sila, or araw-araw galit and they are becoming aggressive and fearful, that is when we need professional help. But when it comes and goes, we as parents could attend to them. Maybe kulang lang sila ng attention from us or kulang lang sila ng connection with us at that moment. Bakit ka nagtatampo? Ano bang nangyari? O ano bang nagawa ko? Another sign that they might need help is when they are unsure of how they could communicate with us as their caregivers or guardians. Parang hindi nila tayo malapitan. And when that happens, it's important to rebuild connections because we have to remember that their developmental relationships are coming mostly from us. And as parents, caregivers, and teachers, it is important that we build our connections with children. I think this would be a particular challenge for teachers, educators all over the world right now because it is very difficult to establish relationships or connections with children virtually. Lalong-lalo na yung mga mas nakababatang estudyante, those in these years. That is a challenge that we need to really address. As for the supports, during their years of 5 to 8, some of the supports that I came up with or thought of might include incorporating active play in educational routines. So for example, sa bahay, ano yung mga pwede nilang gawin, however limited, so that they could move. One of the things that I found my children really like as an activity or active routine during their day is dancing. Siguro bilang mga Pilipino, mahilig din naman talagang sumayaw. At kahit hindi kayo magaling sumayaw, dancing does not require so much space. And by incorporating these kinds of activities in their educational tasks or routine, movement becomes a great way of inviting their interest for their lessons or for learning. Learning areas could also emphasize habits for good hygiene and nutrition. Dahil nasa bahay yung mga bata, we provide them with meals 24/7. And we also get to teach them how to take care of themselves really well. And what the Department of Health has emphasized so many times is for us to learn how to wash our hands well and to maintain good health and good hygiene. And these are the things that could be relevant to our children these days na 5 to 8 years old. O sabi, kailangan daw maghugas tayo ng kamay. Paano natin gagawin yon? Tuturuan kita kung paano tamang gumamit ng sabon, paano maligo ng maayos, paano mag-toothbrush. And these are parts of your lessons that are integral because when you think about your science lessons during these ages, you would think, you could use these as an example. Nagtutoothbrush tayo ng maigi or kumakain tayo ng maigi dahil ito yung nangyayari sa katawan natin. And children during these ages understand that very well. Next, critical thinking. Conversations could include current events, storytelling through books and illustrations. Naiintindihan na po nila yung mga balita, but it is up to us as parents to digest it for them or to help them digest it, to process it. So ano ba yung nangyayari? Bakit hindi tayo pwedeng lumabas? This is the persistent question of my children right now. Why can I not go outside? Why can I not see my friends? And helping them by letting them see news and talk to them about the news that we hear and even processing it by stories. O di ba naalala mo yung nangyari dito sa character na to? And sometimes I also allow my children to illustrate or to draw or to tell me stories about how they understood what happened. So that is very important so that we could also develop their critical thinking skills. We have to remember as guardians, I think I have to emphasize this even more, that the family must be a safe space to express strong emotions. We need to expect that our children will really have and express very, very strong emotions at this time. Because for the most part, nakakulong sila sa bahay. They are trapped inside the home. And their interactions with friends and relatives and loved ones are very limited. And this is very important to them at this age. So to help them, we must be able to be their safe space. Allow them to say, I am angry. Or allow them to say, I am sad. Nalulungkot na po ako. And hindi natin sila papagalitan when they say these things. We will tell them, bakit? Ano nangyari? Sige, kwento mo lang. Sabihin mo kay mama ano bang nangyari. And this will be very helpful for them during this time. Now, there's a little overlap, but in general, in their schooling years, 7 to 11 years old, their characteristics will look like this. So, ito na yung grade 1 hanggang siguro around grade 6. So, they are beginning to understand more complex ideas and their abstract thinking is emerging at this time. So, as they begin to master how to think about ideas without even holding the actual object that they are thinking about, also allows them to develop anxiety or excitement towards the future. Natatakot sila, baka ito pwede mangyari or ito hindi na pala mangyayari. So, this is part of their characteristic within this age group. And they also begin to discover their own limitations. So during this time, they are becoming more aware of, dati akala ko kaya ko lahat. Ngayon, hindi na pala. Bakit yung iba kong kaibigan kaya ito, pero ako hindi? Are they better than me? Or am I better than them? So their feelings of inferiority, competence, or frustration could be coming from these comparisons, these emerging comparisons with self, with peers, and even with their idols. But more important than comparison is their growing relationships with other people, particularly their same age peers. And this is around the age when they say, Mama, sa mga friends ko or kami lang nung friends ko, hindi ka muna kasali dito. But now, their friendships or their interactions with friends will be highly virtual. So, if we think about that, if we consider that, then that could be part of the support that we could give them later on. And I will try to give you some examples later. But I think I also need to emphasize that they have their own culture with peers. Na even as parents, no matter how close we are to our children, hindi tayo kasali doon. And we have to respect that. We have to respect that they have their own world and that there are things that we might not be part of or that we might not understand. And finally, for their executive function skills during this time, the time when the growth of these skills lessen a bit, or at least it is a latent period. But this is the time when they could apply their executive function skills, particularly in tasks at school and also at home. What are their chores? What are the things that you need to do in school and how are you going to accomplish them? You need to plan them, you need to organize them. So that's part of what they could do, or that's part of their characteristic and what could be done with that characteristic. So as parents, paano natin malalaman that they need help? Some of the byproducts of comparison with peers or idols is the question of, why don't I have what they have? Bakit sila nakakabili nun, ako hindi? Bakit hindi mo ako mabilan? Pero yung magulang nila, nabibilan ako nun. And then maaring they could also say, I miss my friends. Gusto ko na pumasok ng school. Gusto ko na makita yung mga kaibigan ko. Or maybe they can ask questions na including, why can I not be like my friends? Bakit yung isa kong kaibigan magaling sa sports, magaling sumayaw, or magaling mag-drawing, magaling sa math? Bakit ako hindi? So there are emerging feelings of incompetence, inferiority, and also frustration. And the signs that they might need help will include if this persists. So kung napapagpatuloy for all their tasks, they feel this way, then it is the time that they need to be given help. Frustrations over schoolwork is also common during these years. This is too hard for me. I cannot do this. Ang hirap naman ito. Hindi ko maintindihan. So this is typical of that age. And I experienced this the most when I was a tutor. So I really heard a lot of this from my students. And it was through being a tutor that I learned how to guide them as an adult, or to overcome how they perceive themselves against this challenge. So what are the supports that we could give them, given these, maybe when they show signs that they need help? So number one, we need to emphasize multiple forms of expressions, particularly in school tasks. Hindi pwedeng lahat sulat lang or hindi pwedeng lahat drawing lang. Maganda na ginagamit din natin kung ano yung kakayanan ng bata and their natural interests. Second, life skills training could also be combined with executive function skills practice. So, ano yung mga ginagawa ng anak ninyo na dapat sa tingin ninyo gawin nila sa bahay? My son right now, he helps me do the laundry, do the dishes. Yun yung mga bagay na kaya na niyang gawin. And nakikita ko na kahit sa paglilinis ng bahay, nakikita ko sa kanya na na-apply na talaga niya yung sarili niya at kung ano yung mga natutunan niya for organizing tasks or planning tasks. Because our children are beginning to compare themselves with peers and with famous personalities, we as caregivers and as parents need to model optimism and how to take a proactive stance towards challenges. We as parents need to have a healthy self-image or saying good things about ourselves. And the children need to hear that so that they too could learn how to do that for themselves. Na, kaya mo yan. Kung hindi mo kaya, ano kaya yung mga pwede nating gawin para magawa mo yung pinapagawa sa'yo? Finally, one of the supports that we could provide is having open and safe channels to continue building and maintaining relationships with peers. So sabi ko nga, napakahalaga na ng mga kaibigan nila ngayon. And being in a virtual relationship with peers is difficult, particularly at this age. Kasi nawawala yung warmth, nawawala yung reality. Their abstract thinking is not yet completely developed. So para sa kanila, paano ko masasabi na kaibigan kita kung hindi kita nakikita, hindi kita nakakausap in person? Kung naaalala niyo po yung mga kahenerasyon ko, meron tayong tinatawag na telebabad pagkatapos ng school. Pero pagkatapos yun ng school, ibig sabihin nagkita muna kayo. You had interactions in school first before you had long conversations over the phone. And this is something that the pandemic is keeping from our children as part of their reality. And we need to find a space as caregivers on how they could continue building relationships with other people. Now let's move on to the adolescent years. What are the characteristics of children from 12 to 18 years old? So a lot of references would say they are impulsive and egocentric, but I would like to emphasize that these characteristics also allow them to react very quickly. They have quick responses, and even though they are emotional or impulsive, this is something, their quick reactions does not happen again at any other stage of your development as a person. Something that we could capitalize on as parents and as teachers for their work at home and in school. Adolescents are also passionate about their ideals and their ideas, their creative inputs. Those are the things that they really like doing, and we need to give them channels for this characteristic to emerge. This is also the beginning of them having their own set of moral guidelines. Ano yung tama at mali para sa kanila. And that is the reason why they are very passionate about their ideals as adolescents. That is natural for them at this age. And also, they are digital natives. Mula nung panahon na pinanganak sila, they already have access to digital devices that allow them to connect with people and to access information upon request. So alam na nila kung paano gamitin to, bata pa lang sila. At hanggang ngayon, this has become an integral part of their lives already. And lastly, during this age, they have developed their abstract thinking very well. And that means they are able to think beyond the present and beyond what is tangible and real. Sometimes they go overboard and say, they think that something unreal is still part of their reality. And they think they are invincible in some ways. But those are still strengths for this age group because it does not occur in any other stage of development. adolescents need a lot of guidance. So I thought as a parent, kapag lumaki na yung mga anak ko, mababawasan na yung help na kailangan nila mula sa akin. But apparently, they need even more help and guidance as they become closer to their adult years. So some of the signs that they might need help, but these are not easily detected, include cyberbullying in social media because they are really exposed at this age to social media. As a parent, I am not comfortable with my children having their own social media accounts at this age. But it will really depend on the parent on the boundaries that they would set and the limits that they would impose on their own children because this is part of reality. Finally, next, there's also aggression from exposure to violent content, particularly some video games that are available for our children these days. And that also poses risks for addiction to non-productive activities. So non-productive activities are not only limited to video games, but this could also include entertainment activities that take them away from the things that they really need to accomplish in their daily lives as personal lives and also in their lives as students. Another sign that they need help is them being able to relate poorly with adults and even peers. Parang hindi sila makagawa ng magandang relationship with friends and even authorities. So that's a sign that they really need help. And another sign could be keeping their personal life away from guardians, being incredibly secretive. So that is a very red flag that we need to consider as parents of adolescents. And finally, this is from my experience as an educator. We also need to look for signs that they are inflicting pain on themselves. So self-harm is a possibility during this age. And it could be their way of coping with the pressures that they feel from different areas of their lives. So these are the things that we will not be able to easily see as their guardians because they have their own lives already as adolescents. But these are the things that we need to be very aware of. How could we support adolescents during these schooling years? And even for their distance learning. Kasama po lahat yan for distance learning. One, I think that as parents, we need to be incredibly proactive by setting or providing limits or to limit opportunities that they place themselves at risk as adolescents. So this could be as simple as placing your digital equipment for learning, for remote learning in common areas like your living room kung saan maraming tao. Mahirap yan para sa kanila kasi maaaring naiistorbo sila, hindi sila makakoncentrate, but this will also encourage them to think twice of their actions and to be mindful of the values that are upheld by their family. So, kailangan meron silang physical reminder na ito pwede, ito hindi pwede gawin online, pero ito hindi yan katanggap-tanggap para sa ating pamilya. Second, we need to utilize their strengths and speed of response kasi mabilis talaga sila mag-react, mabilis sila mag-respond. Kung mapapansin niyo po, adolescents these days, kapag you ask them, could you please send a message to this person and pwede ba paki-text mo ito? Bilis nilang mag-respond, napakabilis din nila kumilos. And we need to be able to utilize that and combine it with their passion, their creativity, and being digital natives to their life skills training and academic work. As parents and guardians, I really think that we need to overcome our fearfulness when it comes to our children's use of technology. It is an integral part of their daily lives and even our daily lives as parents these days. And it is for this reason that we need to be familiar of how our children use technology and how we could guide them towards its constructive use. Some of the common pitfalls include being exposed to violent and abusive content, addiction, and being victims of scams. And these are the boundaries that we need to be very clear about as parents. We have to be explicit about what is acceptable and not acceptable for our family. And third, we need to be able to relate their academic work and life skills training to their interests in the future. As professionals, ano ba yung gusto mong gawin sa buhay mo? Bakit yan yung gusto mong gawin? Are you really interested in that? Or do you want to do that because I told you so as a parent? So this is a time for self-discovery. And this is very important when they choose their future professions. We also need to help them check their impulses. They are quite impulsive, and there are a lot of times that they think that they are invincible, na lahat kaya nilang gawin at wala silang limitations. And this is something that we need to process with them. And I think that having good relationships with our children from their early years, ito na yung magagamit mo. Kumbaga, dito ka na, you can bank on it when you get to this stage. That's why it's very important for us to develop good relations with our children from the time that they are infants. Because by the time that they are adolescents, it will be too late for us to catch up on this. So, pagdating dito na talaga natin magagamit yung good relations natin with us, our children. So, I think that when we guide them towards their impulses, or when they are very impulsive or very irrational, our conversations with them will help them avoid the pitfalls of technology, and also will help them through mastering their executive function skills as well as their social and emotional competencies. That all of these things will be very useful for their professional and personal lives as adults. So to synthesize, I think that while we are guiding them for continuing learning during this distance learning period, our family relations truly need to take precedence over academic tasks. And I think that as working parents, that is also true for us. Our family life really needs to take precedence over work, over academic work, schoolwork, or work as a professional. And finally, we must focus on the development of long-term skills. Yung magagamit nila hindi lang ngayon, pero yung magagamit nila for the long run when they become adults, when they become professionals. Because these have more benefits for them later on as they encounter challenges as adults. So there you go. I hope that my presentation today has been very helpful for you as parents and educators.
All right. So thank you Teacher Lois. Sobrang insightful po ng presentation. Makikita po natin na there is this complementarity po between the presentations of Teacher Lois and EC. Whereas EC po, he talked about how our children exist within societies po, and as societies, working together, we can do something po to help our children on the macro level. Nakikita naman po natin sa presentation po ni Teach Lois na the child not only exists within a society, but of course, they also exist within a family. And as parents and other carers within the family, it is let's make the most of this time, this pandemic po, in order to get back to basics, as Teach Lois said, and reconnect with our children and reorient them po towards building the fundamental skills po that they need to succeed in life. Yung nakikita po natin na hindi lang naman po sa school natututo po yung mga bata. Nakikita rin natin na within the family context, when we interact with our children every day, we provide them opportunities po to model themselves on our own behavior, and to learn how to interact with the world at large po, through the way that they interact po within our homes, within our families. So, ang na-appreciate ko po dun sa presentation po ni Teach Lois ay yung punto po na very importantly, the family should serve as a safe space po for the child to express their inner selves po. So nakikita po natin na mahalagang makinig tayo sa ating mga anak at bigyan natin ng kalayaan sila na ilabas ang kanilang mga saloobin. Kahit po na hindi naman po laging maganda yung ating napapakinggan. Talaga pong sadyang even in normal times po, yung mga bata may sarili po silang nararamdaman. Hindi natin pwedeng i-dismiss ito ng na nagmamakto lang yung bata o nagdadrama. Talagang may pinaghugutan po yung mga bata na to at dapat maintindihan po natin kung saan po nila saan nanggagaling itong mga salubin na to. Yung isa pa pong na-appreciate ko po dun sa presentation po ni Teach Lois is yung pag-discuss po niya ng mga developmental stages. So nakikita niyo po na psychology po, the study of family life and child development in the social sciences po has a lot to teach us about parang where the child should be at. And kahit po na siguro medyo ahead siya in others and medyo behind siya in others, pero nakikita natin na children definitely, there are trends po within which children fall under po. And they grow they grow developmentally in this way. So nakikita po natin na they express din po their emotions, their feelings po in different ways as they grow older and their inner lives become more complex. So dapat po, tama po si Teach Lois, we need to be able to know what they're capable of, and we also need to recognize the signs po when they are feeling happy, when they are feeling certain things. We also need to recognize the signs for when they are crying out for help po, and act on these signs po and provide them the appropriate help. So ayan po. That I think po makikita natin na above all, yun sa gitna ng pandemya na to, meron man pong academic work, family relations comes first, as Teach Lois says, and yung po matatay po natin from the previous presentations in our previous installments of Research O Clock na we need to be able to care for ourselves as families, as parents, as people before we are able to extend care to others. Ayan. So, ayan po. Thank you po to our presenters, Teach Lois and EC for for your insights po on how we can address our concerns on psychosocial development both at the macro and micro level. So we're going to move on po dun sa ating next phase ng ating forum, which is our reactor. So we have two reactors po for today. So we have Mr. Rexan Endayaw. He is a father of 3 from San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Sir Rexan?
Hello, good morning, Sir Michael.
Narinig po kayo.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ang dami kong natutunan from Sir IC and Ma'am Lois. Bilang isang magulang, napakahalaga sa akin na pinapakinggan kami ng Department of Education. Napakalalim nung sinabi ni Sir IC na ang pandemyang ito ay hindi lang sa Pilipinas nangyayari, kundi nangyayari din at naapektuhan ng iba't ibang bata at iba't ibang pamilya sa buong mundo. Doon sa napakinggan ko kay Sir IC at saka kay Teacher Lois, na-realize ko na tama yung aking naging desisyon na i-enroll yung aking anak sa school year 2020-2021. Dahil na-realize ko na hindi pala yung lockdown yung magtutuldok dun sa paglago ng mga anak ko. Maraming paraan, maraming pwedeng gawin, pwede tayong magtulungan para makamit ito. Siguro magsisimula iyon sa pagtanggap na ang pandemya ay narito na, maaari siyang manatili, maaaring hindi na siya umalis, kaya dapat tayong magpatuloy, gayon din yung paglago ng ating mga anak. Kaugnay noon, marami din kasi akong agam-agam bilang isang magulang na kasi meron akong 3 anak, isang grade 9, isang grade 10 at isang grade 6. So at dahil ina-adjust din namin yung aming buhay sa loob ng 5 buwan, I'm in a work from home status, and I'm so thankful that my employer is still supporting my family in everything that we need. Pero yung work at home setup sometimes takes away time for home. Nawawalan na kasi ng delineation yung parang alin ba yung oras ko para sa trabaho at aling oras ko para sa pamilya. So minsan stressful din siya para sa akin at alam ko minsan stressful din siya sa aking mga anak. Also, since malapit na ang August 24, nagtatry na kami mag-set up sa bahay nung ano yung mga pwede naming ayusin in order to be ready for the online classes. Meron ba kaming table? May mga chairs ba kami? May gadgets ba kami? May connection? Of course, as parent, I'm really trying hard to provide for my family. Although, hindi ito kasi konteksto sa lahat ng pamilya sa buong Pilipinas. Iba't iba talaga yung ating kalagayan. At naisip ko rin na habang naka-lockdown tayo, yung gadget ay nagiging isang sagka para magkaroon ng meaningful interaction with our kids. So sa halip na yung 5 buwan ay nagugugol sana sa mas maayos na pakikipag-ugnayan sa ating mga anak, ito pa yung naging dahilan kung bakit sila lumalayo. Sa palagay ko, ang pwedeng maging suporta ng ating mga guro sa aming mga anak sa pagdating ng pasukan ay magkaroon ng kumustahan session. Tanungin sila kumusta, ano ang kanilang iniisip at kanilang nararamdaman. Kami namang mga magulang, it is important for children to feel a sense of normalcy even if the situation is not normal. We can do this through gardening, through doing household chores together. Tas ang natutunan ko from Teacher Easy is support them through enrollment, provide their needs, ask teachers for options. It is important for children to feel supported sa new educational setup. Bagong-bago kasi ito, and this is the only time that we experience this, na while our children is actually adjusting to a new normal, dapat maramdaman nila na sinusuportahan natin sila. At dapat din nating tandaan na hindi kasi naging kultura ng pamilyang Pilipino yung nag-uusap talaga, nanay, tatay, mga anak. Lalo na sa mga probinsya, medyo mahiyain kasi ang mga, it's either hindi ganun ka-close or mahiyain ang mga anak or mahiyain yung mga magulang. Siguro pwedeng i-promote ng mga parents yung pag-uusap sa panahon na sila ay kumakain, sa panahon na sila ay gumagawa ng gawaing bahay. Maraming paraan yung pwede nating open na ipakita sa mga anak natin na handa tayong makinig. Para naman sa aspeto ng ano yung pwedeng maging suporta ng mga guro sa aming mga magulang, I am hoping that that schools can set up a school hotline kung saan pwedeng magtanong ang mga parents about the new setup and the enrollment. I know that and I saw a lot of Facebook pages of the various schools na may mga pwedeng tawagan na mga numero. Napakalaking suporta po yun sa amin para malaman namin na marami palang options. Kaming pwedeng kuhanan, maraming kaming source of information na pwedeng makuhanan. We can also tap the GPTA in promoting school setup and announcements kasi talaga namang active tayo sa mga group chats at napakalaking tulong po ng mga GPTA kasi alam po natin na kailangan natin ng tulong ng bawat institusyon, ng bawat organisasyon in order for us to reach all those kahit sa kasuluk-sulukan ng Pilipinas. Teachers can also come up with sessions that children and parent and guardians can do together. Kumbaga parang although modular ito or online platform ito or mixed platform, sana may mga school activities na pwedeng gawin ng bata at saka ng guardian together. That could also be a foundation or an opportunity for children and parents and guardians to talk, 'di ba? Usap tayo habang gumagawa ng project. And lastly, maayos at mainam na impormasyon sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng lengguwahe na naiintindihan ng mga magulang. I saw a lot of Facebook posts that are written in English, and we know that English is not our primal language. May iba't ibang lengguwahe na ginagamit ang bawat lokalidad sa iba't ibang sulok ng Pilipinas. So kung maaari sana ang mga eskwelahan bukod sa wikang Ingles ay gamitin ang mga lokal na lengguwahe upang maipahatid natin sa mga magulang ang tamang impormasyon na kailangan nila. For DepEd, what we are probably needing in relation to the support is for schools to allot communication allowances for teachers to make calls and check among children and their families. I mean hindi ko man sinasabi na parang tawagan ni teacher yung 35 na estudyante in one day, but it would really mean a lot for families when children are doing check-ins. Dati naman nag-home visit ang mga teachers, and since home visit will not be allowed, probably a call dahil karaniwan naman sa mga pamilya ay may cellphone. Next is, we could probably come up with a PA system informing parents about the new school setup. Tandaan natin, hindi lahat ng parent ay nakakabasa, pero pwede nilang gamitin ang kanilang pandinig. At kami, kahit hindi kami nakakalabas, kapag nadaan kami sa eskwelahan, tinitingnan namin siya kung meron bang anong bago, anong mga announcement. And a public PA system will not cost as much. Maraming magagaling na teachers na pwedeng gumawa nito. Ang palagay ko bilang isang magulang, ang nagiging ugat ng takot ay yung kakulangan ng kaalaman. Kung mapupunan po natin at masasagot lahat ng tanong ng mga magulang, sigurado po makukuha natin ang kanilang suporta. Bilang isang magulang, ako po ay sumusuporta sa DepEd at maraming salamat po, Sir IC, Ma'am Lois, sa oportunidad at sa kaalaman na binahagi niyo ngayon.
Ayan, maraming salamat po Sir Rex. Ang daming mungkahi po na talagang magagamit po namin dito sa DepEd para may paigting pa ang inclusivity po at pagpoprotekta pa do sa mental health po ng ating mga mag-aaral at mga magulang. Actually, napaka-relevant po nga na napag-usapan nga natin kung paano natin papanatiliin yung pagbuklod po ng pamilya sa ganitong panahon. Kasi sa susunod po, pag-usapan din po natin sa susunod na research o'clock ang psychosocial support naman po para do sa mga magulang. So ayan po. Thank you po again, Mr. Rex Dayaw, our parent reactor from San Juan del Monte, Bulacan. So let's move on po to our next reactor. Ang ating susunod po na reactor ay si Miss Gabrielle Renlambo. Si Gab po ay isang grade 10 student po galing po sa Zamboanga City.
Hello, sir.
Ayan po, naririnig po kayo.
My concern as a student, sir, first of all, is the technical issue. Many students are not provided with a strong internet connection. Maraming mahihirapan dahil sa hina at kawalan ng internet connection, especially ang mga nasa probinsya. Pero sir, sa sinabi po ni Sir Easy, meron rin namang pong ino-offer na to how to continue learning. Meron rin po ang via radio or TV, sir. So, hindi na po kami masyadong mahirapan. Tapos, sir, ngayon, sir, sa pasukan na to, mahirap kasi distance learning. Hinahanda ko ng sarili ko, especially self-discipline and to be more independent kasi ako lang po yung mag-isang nag-aaral. Unlike po sa school na marami po kaming kakumpanya ng mga kastudyante, pwede po kami magtanong. So, kailangan po talaga ng self-discipline at saka to be more responsibility, sir. I also prepare my gadgets for online learning. Bumili rin ako ng notebook para kahit papano, sir, feel ko pa rin ang school na nagsusulat pa rin, hindi po puro na lang kami nagla-live, nagzo-zoom po. So, bumili rin po ako ng note para ma-jot down notes ko ang mga important details or ang mga natutunan ko sa year na to. Tsaka, sir, yung parents ko po, sir, is very supportive kasi bumili rin po sila ng anti-radiation eyeglass to protect my eyes. Kasi whole school year po kami mag-aaral sa internet, sir. So, kailangan talagang protektahan yung mata namin. Siguro for me, sir, kung ano yung effective for now, siguro for me as a student, wag masyadong magpadala sa mga sinasabi about disadvantage sa online class. Minsan kasi kung anong tinanim mo sa mind mo, naki-carried out ang entirely perspective mo sa online class. Motivate yourself and see the brighter purpose of online classes. Kapag puro kasi na lang rant and discriminate about sa online class, sir, parang mas lalo kaming nafe-feel down as a student, parang mas lalo kaming natatakot, baka po bigla kami mawalang ng internet connection at hindi kami makapag-aral. Syempre as a student, sir, natatakot rin po kami, lalo na po ang mga nasa probinsya. So para sa amin po, kailangan lang talaga namin ng motivate at saka i-encourage lang kami na mas lalong ipagpatuloy na to, lalo na ngayon may pandemic na ganito, kailangan talaga namin mag-aral for the future. Siguro naman po, hindi naman po siguro whole future namin na ganito, siguro naman po matatapos rin to. So, ang effective, so if ganun, di natin malalaman ang effectivity ng online class kung sa simula pa lang negative na tayo. ang siguro po ang kailangan namin na suporta kailangan namin na suporta galing sa DepEd is support from their school and teachers. Kasi po sa school, pwede po kaming magtanong sa teacher ng personal interact, pwede po kaming lumapit sa teacher na magtanong. Siguro po ngayon, mas kailangan namin na maging open kami sa isa't isa sa teacher na, ma'am, hindi po namin ito naiintindihan, paano po ba ito? So, yun lang po, sir, kailangan lang talaga namin ng support from their school and teachers. Hello?
Okay pa?
Yun lang po, sir.
Ayan. Alright, thank you Gab. So, ayun po, salamat Gab sa salamat Gab sa inyong reaction. Nakikita po natin sa reaction ni Gab po yung determination po ng ating mag-aaral po sa iba't ibang dako ng bansa para ipagpatuloy po yung kanilang pag-aaral. Kaya nakikita natin na parang doon sa mga para doon sa mga magulang po na skeptical po sa ating online learning, sana po pakinggan po natin yung mga saloobin ng mga bata na katulad ni Gab na nakikita at i-recognize po natin na talagang gusto po nila mag-aral, suportahan po natin sila at bigyan po natin sila ng space po at ng lahat ng resources na kailangan po nila para mapagpatuloy pa nila ang pag-aaral nila. Kasi nakikita po natin talaga doon sa presentation po na ni Teach Lois at ni EC na talagang mahalaga po sa routine po ng bata at sa kanilang development ang pananatili po sa edukasyon. At kaya kapag sinabi po nila na talagang gusto po nilang mag-aral, talagang bigyan natin let us give free rein to this and ensure that they have everything that they need. So, thank you po to our reactors, Sir Rex and Gab po, for your insights po on today's presentation. We will now move on to the next part of our forum. And this is always most exciting kasi ang daming magagandang discussions sa ating open forum. So, may I hand it over to Yumi who already has the first question up for delivery. Yan. Yumi?
Ayan. Thank you, Michael. So, yun po, for our audiences, please keep your questions coming. And now, to address our first question is directed to Teacher Lois. The question po is, how to maintain or build relationship with peers during the pandemic or while in distance learning? And also, what if it's too late na to make an action in disciplining our kids? What is your idea about this?
Siguro po magandang sagot din yan gamit ang tanong din na ilang taon na yung anak ninyo. No, nakakahalaga po kung ilang taon na sila because I think I mentioned this in the adolescent part of my presentation. So there's a very big chance that they have adolescent children as parents when they ask this question. Could you hear me? Is it clear? Okay. So I think for adolescent, when your children are in the adolescent stage, medyo mas mahirap na siya. Because I find that children in their early years are a little bit more forgiving and accommodating with parents. Like, when my son right now is angry with me, sinasabi talaga niya, Mama, angry ako sa'yo. Or sasabihin niya, Mama, sad yung heart ko kasi ikaw, ganon. But adolescents wouldn't say that. And I think that is why I always emphasize with parents with very young children to make connecting with your children a priority. Kailangan talaga. It's not because of you get to support them with their social and emotional well-being during this time, but it's mostly because you will be able to use that or capitalize on this relationship and connection when they are much older, when their world is bigger outside of the home. Malalapitan ka ba nila? Ikaw ba ay makakausap nila? And that is a really important, as we see now, a really important characteristic or connection within a family. sistema siya eh. Hindi pwedeng may isang may iwan. So, lahat sa buong pamilya apektado ng relasyon ng kahit sino within the family. So, what if your child is already in the adolescent phase and you were not able to establish this connection when they were much younger? I think you have to work double. And I frequently say this for my special education profession. Kasi in special education, early intervention is really important. Parang ganun din yung mangyayari dito. So if you were not able to invest in early intervention early in their years, mas maganda po talaga na do your best to prioritize establishing or building a connection with your adolescent children. Be part of their world. Parang maging bukas tayo kung sino sila. Kasi mas mahirap na yun ngayon. Ano ba yung mga gustong gawin ng anak ninyo? Mahirap nang umentrada sa buhay nila ngayon kasi may sarili sila. But let's make attempts. Siguro simulan sa relationship sa bahay. Kunyari, kain tayo. Or dahil hindi pa sila pwede uminom, baka pwedeng merienda tayo together. Kasi yun yung pangarap ng asawa ko na sana pag malaki na daw yung mga bata, pwede inuman na kasama sila para bahagi ng kwentuhan. Siguro ganun din for adolescents, no? Halika merienda tayo. Para malungkot ka, usap tayo. O yung mga ganong klaseng suporta. Tapos, siguro iwasan din yung judgmental comments as parents na sinabi ko na kasi sa'yo, huwag mong gagawin yan eh. O iwasan mo yung taong yan. Ganyan. Siguro, more of be a listener. Be a listener during this stage and be more accepting of who they are because their personality will really emerge during this time. So, iba na sila. They are a different person. They will have they have a very strong sense of individuality. And we need to do our best as parents to accept who they have become. Frankly, to be honest, that's one of my fears as a parent. Na pag dumating na sa stage na to yung mga anak ko, paano kaya ako? That is actually a very scary stage for me. I can really imagine and relate with the parent who asked this question. No? But do your best and prioritize this and kumbaga brute force pero without being judgmental. Be accepting and really learn about who they are at this point.
Ayan, thank you very much po, Teacher Lois. No, ayan, Teacher Lois emphasized the importance of building a connection to our children. And I think yun talaga yung pinaka-main recipe or what can we say, para to ensure na open yung relationship ng parents, ng teachers, at ng mga learners. Okay? So for our next question, Michael.
All right. So our next question po is from Facebook, from Ma'am Menya Gamboa. So in terms of psychosocial support, do we need an expert to conduct orientation or explain how this can be provided? And what available survey questionnaire or other tools ang pwede po natin gamitin to know how prepared our learners, parents, and teachers are psychosocially? Hi, this is addressed po to no one in particular po. Pwede pong anyone can answer this question.
I can start. Maybe my other colleagues in the panel can also jump in. So I mean, this is a very good question. So the area of mental health and psychosocial support require expertise. So there must be orientation, guidance, and the role of some professionals for this area. But this also needs to be extended to the main supporters of the children, who are the teachers and the parents. So as the Department of Education is planning, so there would be trainers of trainers who would be the ones who would be delivering the main strategies, the main coping mechanisms, the different orientation that parents and teachers can use with the children. So of course, no, there is some expertise that would help in developing these strategies, but then for the application and for the implementation, there are different roles that parents and teachers can play. And I really like what I hear from Rex. So this is a very critical time in which the communication and the alliance between teachers and parents must be stronger than ever. And I think we are already witnessing that those type of initiative, and especially for the beginning of the school year, they should communicate and cooperate closer than ever, because the challenges that we are facing with the COVID-19 to provide distance learning and the stress that is around, no, all of us during this time, require this type of cooperation. So I think that this is a great opportunity for doing this even better. I think and I'm confident that the parents and the teachers will play an amazing role at the beginning of the school year. So yeah, I think that would be my first reaction to the question, but maybe my other colleagues in the panel can complement.
All right. Thank you, thank you, EC, for the answer to that question, and apologies for a bit for lapsing into Taglish while asking the question. You know, it's a very Filipino tendency. Yumi, do you have the next question for our speakers?
Yes, yes. The question is, maybe ask also Sir Easy to answer this one. Like, how can we support particularly our learners with special education needs in terms of psychosocial support?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I think, as I said during my presentation, these are times in which there is the risk that those with more needs are left behind. So we need to have extra support and do special effort for those who have more needs. So there are different ways to provide this. There is no like a one solution, because it would depend on the different special need for the student. But one way is to ensure an important thing we have to do is to make sure that we have in mind all the different students that are part of our classroom and our schools, and what are the needs that they have. And that's the first step. And some of them will have more challenging time during distance education for different reasons. No, it could be hearing, or impairments, or it could be visual impairment. So we need to see what are the main needs and what extra support we have to provide. So it could be devices that could be delivered. It could be different type of materials that they would need to continue with the distance learning. So there is no right answer. I mean, there are different type of special needs, but I think that the first step is to map out who are the students in our classrooms and in our schools with these needs, and come together with a solution. No? There are some resources from the Department of Education, from international organizations, some also guidance and orientation. In my presentation at the end, when you will receive it, there is a list of different resources. Some of them also could help for students with special needs. So I would recommend to have a clear map out, and then have tailored solution for them. It's not going to be easy. So I want to be very honest about this. This is going to be very challenging, but we need to do these extra efforts. These are, as I said before, these are times in which we need to be more creative, to be more cooperative. But also these crises are the times in which we can see the best of human beings, and when we can put in place values as solidarity, cooperation, and support for those that are in most need.
All right. Thank you, EC. Teacher Lois, would you like to add that po? Add on that po? All right. So for our next question, Michael.
All right. Our next question comes from our Padlet. How can parents become aware if their kids are showing signs of depression? So I think more broadly, parang how can parents train themselves to be able to know if the kids are experiencing some not just mental problems but mental illness. This is a good question. This is a very good question. We'd like to invite both our speakers to answer. Yes, yes, Teach Lois.
I think based on my experience, it is easier to tell for younger children than it is for older children. Because for younger children, they are very transparent. Like if they are going through a difficult time, such as their parents separating, uh, they immediately show changes in behavior, like loss of appetite or changing their attitudes in school, becoming a little bit more aggressive or easily angry. Some of them become extremely sad or fearful. But for older children, particularly those in the adolescent years, I again that is very difficult to tell because they are very good at hiding it. So there are some children who are already inflicting self-harm, hindi natin nakikita. Even the parents are not aware of it. So based on my experience as a professional, the children really have to come forward and say, I have a problem. And pag sinabi nila yon, usually they say this to adults whom they trust. They really trust. And sometimes it's not the parents because it's easier to approach someone outside of the family, like their teacher or a tita or their lola. This na nagiging relationships talaga nila early in life. But for parents, some of the things that they could rely on are maybe a good working relationship with people, adults whom their children have relationships with. Kunyari ako, alam ko na my children will be close to a particular adult like a tita, I would really have to rely on them because there would be times that adolescents would really not tell you as a parent na they are undergoing severe stress or severe forms of severe bouts of sadness. They wouldn't tell it. And sometimes, yun na yung delikado pag umabot na sila dun sa punto na they are becoming, they are engaging in very risky behaviors or they're inflicting self-harm already. Yun hindi nakikita yun ng parent. Hindi agad nakikita. Kaya ang sinasabi ko kanina, social media is such a big factor in this. And as a parent, I think up until this point, I really am not comfortable with adolescents having their own social media accounts and access because that is one of the reasons why they are able to compare themselves more and have problems engaging, lalo na kapag ka nagkaroon na ng cyberbullying or nagkaroon na ng parang episodes na napag-usapan sila in social media, mahirap na yon. Pag dumating ka na sa punto na yon, mahirap nang bumalik. That's why I said one of the things that we can do as parents for the adolescent years is to make digital devices or digital encounters a little bit more accessible only in common areas. Kasi dito natin sila mas susubaybayan. Yes, they will not have the privacy that they would prefer. But at this point and age, privacy should not be your main priority. Because hindi natin sila masusubaybayan ng maigi. And I still think that pag hindi natin yun nakikita, hindi natin maa-address yun lahat. By the time that they come to you and say, I think I have a problem, usually they're already at their peak. And there are also some adolescents who reach their peak and their parents are not yet knowledgeable that they have a problem. So kung ako po bilang magulang, I think I have to be able to establish not only good relationships with my children, but also with the adults that they trust and also their friends. These times that would be especially challenging, but by placing certain boundaries on their use and also on their digital device use, kung saan lang pwede nila gamitin, kung pwede not within private areas, then that will help you limit what they put themselves in. I think that's a very proactive step.
Ayan. Thank you, Teach Lois. So I'm going to cut this for a bit and apologize on behalf of the viewers because EC would like to talk to answer more of your questions, but he has another event to go to at 11 a.m. So from the Department of Education, may we thank Mr. EC Feingold for his participation in our forum. Thank you, EC, and hope to see you again in another research o'clock. For the next question, may we have Yumi to deliver that question? Yes.
Ayan. Thank you, Michael. And then thank you also, EC. So our next question is directed to, of course, Teacher Luis. This question is from Padlet. Ayan. Good morning po. I am a solo parent having 2 kids aged 13 and 15. Kindly share me some of your tips. How can I handle my kids? I am also an educator and a little bit stressed in our new normal in education for making modules and others. And I do also household chores, but I also do give assignments to my kids. My kids are most of the time they're on gadgets, and madalas daw po siyang nagagalit kapag hindi nila ginagawa yung assignments nila bago maglaro ng kanilang mga gadgets. And sometimes I think I already have a panic attack. How can I help my children as well and myself as well? Thanks.
I think yung question na to ang nagpapatotoo doon sa sinabi ko kanina that the adolescent years are actually a phase that's quite scary for us as parents. Kahit ako po, that is one of my sources of anxiety. Now, I think you are much farther along in parenting than I am, given that your children are 13 and 15 years old. And I do hope that you have been able to maintain good connections with your children up until this time. In terms of gadget use, that is, I think, a common occurrence across many families during this quarantine period. Kasi walang ibang pwedeng gawin. Isn't that the reality even for adults? Hindi sila pwede lumabas. They could not meet with their friends. And the only way that the digital natives will be able to truly access their social circles outside of home is through use of digital devices. But it could also cover the use of devices for video gaming, or for social media use, or other forms of entertainment. She is an educator and she is working from home. She is also doing a lot of chores. And I guarantee you that I can empathize with you. I do all of those myself also. We have no access to help. We have no access to relatives right now. So all of the things that need to be done at work and at home fall in our shoulders. And this is a reality for many parents these days. The pressure is so much more. Across the world, this is a reality. So, sa totoo lang po, yung gadget use, nagiging outlet din natin or respite din natin as parents. Kailangan maging, ano po bang tawag doon? You need to be kind to yourself also and say, this is a reality. I need a break also. So don't punish yourself too much for it. I think what we can do a little bit more proactively is tell them what they need to do first before the use of gadgets. Parang they can access gadgets after certain things. I do that with my son, but he's much younger than your children. But he understands it na there are things that he has to accomplish first before I give him access to that gadget. And I think nakatulong yon kasi alam niya my expectations are explicit, and he also knows that those expectations are the ones that I will tell him once he asks for access to these digital devices. So, ano po, una po, luwagan niyo po yung loob ninyo na it's part of our reality. Be kind to yourself. You are working hard. You are also shouldering a lot of tasks. And as a mother, the mental load is overwhelming. That's how I can best describe it at this point. So be kind to yourself and say, this is part of our reality now. I just need to make or set simple boundaries, boundaries that they will understand, and boundaries that I do not need to repeat over and over again para hindi po ako magmukhang nagger na mommy. No, yan po yung kahit default na po yun ng lahat ng mommy. Pero as much as possible, I will not repeat myself. That's what I tell my son. I do not want to repeat myself. I will tell this to you one time. If you do not understand it, I will explain it to you again. But these are our rules. And make it few. We have very few rules at home. So make it few, but make it your most important rules para hindi ka parang sirang plaka pa ulit-ulit. Kasi nakakapagod din po yun sa magulang. It adds stress to you as a parent, and it adds stress to the family, to the entire family system. So be kind to yourself because there are many things or there are many people that depend on you as a mother.
Ayan, thank you very much, Teacher Luis. Yan no, importante po not just for our learners to help our parents and our teachers to encourage or to promote self-love and self-care kasi lahat po tayo naman ay affected ng pandemic na ito. And also to share some insights po no, shared by our viewers in our Facebook page for a while. Madami pong mga nagsisend ng kanilang mga comments, ng kanilang mga insights. And one of which is from Miss May Cayetano San Pedro. She said, nice topic, Miss Hamero. This is a very big help and realization to the parents that it is essential to impart skills, responsibilities, attitude, and character must be developed to our child, not just academic alone. So parents must always be a good example to our children. And from Bingaldon, very relevant lecture, Dr. Hamero, it brings back the concept of education to the family where everything started. Ayan, maraming salamat po, Teacher Luis and EC. So with that ends our open forum. We apologize if we were not able to address all your questions, but we would like to thank Teacher Luis and EC and to our reactors, Daddy Rexan and Ms. Gabriel, for sharing your insights in our third virtual research o'clock for today. And also, we would like to thank our FSL interpreters, Sir Billy and Ma'am Ellen from the Philippine School for the Deaf. And for the last part of our program for today, may we call on the Assistant Chief of the Planning, Policy Research and Development Division of the Planning Service, Sir Emil John Centillas.
Thank you. Maraming salamat, Yumi and Michael. Maraming salamat po ulit sa ating mga speakers, kay Sir Isi and of course kay Teach Lois for the very insightful and very informative presentations. Of course, sa ating mga reactors na very real po, very based from experience yung kanilang mga shinare na reactions kay Sir Rex and of course kay Gab. Nagaling pang, of course, Zamboanga City. Ayan, so isa na naman po nakakabusog na umaga sa ating lahat. Before we take our lunch, of course, nabusog tayo sa mga bagong information, mga bagong insights, and we hope that you were able to learn something new or to relearn something, to rediscover something about parenting, about providing psychosocial support. Nung pinag-uusapan po namin itong research o'clock kung paano natin ihahatid ito sa inyo, isa sa mga malalapit no sa puso talaga namin bilang opisina. At ng DepEd, of course, is to ensure na ma-provide yung psychosocial support sa ating mga learners, especially during the current situation. Na-mention kanina ng ating mga speakers and even our reactors, they mentioned the current situation that we have right now. We have been fighting this pandemic since 5 months now, no? And we will be entering a new normal come August 24. That's why it's very important yung pag-provide, makalimutan yung ating mga sarili, ang ating mga, of course, the well-being of our learners bilang papasok sila sa classroom on a completely new learning modality, learning delivery. Ayan po. So 2 things lang po no for our synthesis, 2 bagay lang po ang tumatak sa akin. Una po no is awareness po, recognizing our emotions. Na-mention kanina ni AC, ni Teacher Lois, yung iba't ibang emosyon na nararamdaman ng ating mga learners, no? Especially po yung presentation ni Teacher Lois kanina, na-mention niya sa key stages, ano-ano yung manifestations ng anxiety, ng worries. Even Gab, kanina, nung kanyang reaction, na-mention niya na may mga fear siya, may mga anxiety siya come August 24 na pagpasok sa paaralan. Iba pa to sa anxieties na naramdaman natin, of course, ng ating mga learners during the whole pandemic. Why can't we go out? Bakit tayo pwedeng lumabas? And it's very important na makita natin ito. I know that there's a lot going on, but it's also important to observe, to listen, to take a step back and listen, makinig, magpamati, makiramdam, ayan, so iba't ibang variations ng listen to our learners, to our children, no? Nagma-manifest ba sa kanila anong mga sinasabi nila or ginagawa nila that could inform us on how we better support them in terms of providing psychosocial support. Ayan po. So we have to recognize all these emotions na pinapakita o naramdaman ng ating mga bata. So we hope that for parents and teachers this August 24, we are able to check in once in a while. Sabi kanina ni Teach Loy sa kanyang last slide na family relationships precedes academic tasks. So we hope na itong dalawang to, ang family relationship at pagkatuto this school year ay maayos yung kanilang relationship, maayos yung pag-handle natin, pag-facilitate natin in order for our learners no to learn despite the pandemic. Ayan. So, but we also have to recognize the different context na ginagalawan natin. Iba-iba yung konteksto. Sabi ni Sir Rex kanina ng ating parent, iba-iba yung kontekstong ginagalawan ng bawat pamilya. So it's also very important now, aside from recognizing these emotions, aside of awareness, it's really important that we also, number 2, strengthen the support systems. No? Iba't ibang sektor. Sabi nga ni Yumi kanina, it takes a village to raise a child. Iba-ibang sektor ang may taya, no? Basic ed, may taya tayo on that. Iba't ibang sektor sa bansa natin may taya tayo on that. So it's very important to strengthen the systems in providing psychosocial support to our learners, no? Especially for those who will provide that. Our teachers, our caregivers, our parents, our guardians, sila po ang katuwang natin, no, in providing psychosocial, in ensuring that our learners get the support they need during this pandemic. Of course, the community. The past 3 research o'clocks, we always highlight the importance of community, ang pagtutulungan ng ating kanya-kanyang komunidad. Ayan. So, in support po, no, dahil na-recognize po namin na teachers and parents and caregivers and guardians are very crucial in the delivery of the learning modalities this coming school year. The next 2 research o'clocks po, next week, ang topic po natin ay providing professional and psychosocial support naman po for our learners. For our teachers. And next week naman po is engaging our caregivers, the parents, the guardians for our families. Ito pong tatlong to, the learners, the teachers, the the caregivers, sila po ang triangle ng nabubuo para maging efficient, may effective po itong ating learning modalities. So we recognize, sabi nga ni Teach kanina, we also need to take a step back for ourselves. So we also recognize na kailangan ng suporta ng ating learners, ng ating teachers, at ng ating households in providing psychosocial support for this school year. So we hope po na marami po tayong natutunan ngayong umaga. We hope that it helps, this helps you encourage more learners to enroll, more parents to enroll their children this coming school year. Ito pong Facebook Live natin ay patuloy na mag-record po at patuloy na nasa Facebook page. So pwede natin siyang balikan kung kailangan nating ipakita yung mga tips na minention kanina ni Teach Flo o yung mga programa na minention ni Easy kanina. So maraming salamat po sa pakikinig, sa pagstay kasama natin dito sa ngayong umaga. So we hope that the next 2 weeks kasama pa rin namin kayo. Tapusin po natin ang Research O'Clock series natin in ensuring that we provide the support that the systems need for this school year. Maraming salamat po and good morning. Okay, maraming salamat, Emil. So ayan po, abangan niyo po ang ating last 2 installments of Research O'Clock on August 5 and August 12 respectively. Makikita niyo po na we've got all the bases covered po when it comes to providing insights on how to implement and distance learning through this pandemic. So yun po, again, we value your feedback po. We have this feedback form. You can either scan the QR code or type in tinyurl.com/VRO-0729 para po makapagbigay po tayo ng feedback sa presentation at maaari po pag nabasa po namin yung inyong feedback na ma-incorporate po namin ito sa aming mga susunod na palabas. Hindi lang naman po ito yung magiging huling installment ng Research O'Clock. May 2 pa po at marami pa pong virtual Research O'Clock po hopefully in the future, and hope to see you po next time po. Same time, same Facebook page. Again po, I am Michael Manangu from the Policy Research and Development Division.
And I am Yumi, from the same office. And thank you everyone for joining our 3rd virtual Research O'Clock. Happy lunch!
Happy lunch!
Sasamahan kita kahit isang eroplano ang agwat nating 2. Dahil kung nakakapagsalita lamang ang paliparan, ikukwento niya kung ilang beses akong lumingon pabalik sa'yo nung araw na ako'y lumisan. Papalubog ang araw noon at dahan-dahan lumulubog din ang puso ko sa kalungkutan. Ayaw sana kitang iwan. Gusto kitang samahan. Sa mga umagang nagmamadali ka papasok sa eskwela. Gusto kitang damayan sa mga gabing nahihirapan ka sa matematika. Gusto kitang yakapin sa tuwing gusto mo nang sumuko dahil akala mo'y wala kang talento sa pagpinta. Ngunit anak, gusto kong ipaalam sa'yo na ikaw ang nagpinta ng buhay ko. Nang dumating ka, naging makulay ang mundo ko. Ang dating mga baluktot na linya ay naging tuwid. Ang dating madilim na larawan ay nabigyan ng liwanag. Kaya anak, gusto pa rin kitang samahan sa bawat mong karanasan, sa mga tagumpay at kabiguan. Sasamahan kita hanggang marating mo ang mga ulap, hanggang maabot mo ang iyong mga pangarap.
Hello, Ma?
Hello, anak. Sorry, kakatapos lang ng trabaho ni Mama.
Okay lang po, Ma. Kakatapos lang din naman po namin maglaro.
Mukhang nandun ka ulit sa paborito mong lugar, ah.
sige, ready ka na ba? Punta ka na sa DepEd Commons. Math tayo ngayon, ha? Saan na nga ulit tayo na ito kahapon? Sa problem solving na, di ba?
Anak, sasamahan kita. Kahit isang eroplano ang agwat nating dalawa.
So we could administer online examination by introducing to our teachers and our learners yung tinatawag namin ngayong DepEd Commons. No? We have a DepEd Commons where lessons for the remaining quarter, itong last 2 weeks, ay ma-access ng mga bata at saka mga teacher. Magkakaroon din sila ng review for the 4th quarter, and then they can also take the examination online if the students are not satisfied on the transmutation formula that the teacher will be undertaking.
Ang Digital Rise Program ay nakadisenyo upang pag-usayin ang kakayahang pagtuturo ng mga pampublikong guro. Sa Digital Rise ay sisiguraduhin magiging accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral saan mang bahagi ng Pilipinas. Learning will take place anytime and anywhere dahil sa direksyon ni Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones ay sinimula ng Office of the Undersecretary for Administration ang DepEd Commons. Napaaga ang pag-launch ng DepEd Commons dahil sa hindi inaasaang pandemya. Kailangan magpatuloy ang pag-aaral kaya kinailangan ng Office of the Undersecretary for Administration na ilunsad ng mas maaga sa plano ang DepEd Commons. The DepEd Commons is a work in progress. The ICTS Educational Technology Unit is the new office established to create and handle the emerging technologies and blend curriculum and instruction with ICT. The DepEd Commons is designed to give access to online review materials and OERs during class suspension and other circumstances where the DepEd Commons is open and targets the inclusive education as it is for K-12 learners for both public and private schools. It is also open for deaf and blind learners due to its accessibility features, for alternative learning system, and for the professional development of teachers. Simula ng public launch nito noong March 19 ay umabot na sa mahigit 7 milyon ang DepEd Commons users.
And the second approach is now very popular, Mr. President. This is the online learning platform, and we in DepEd, we have what we describe as DepEd Commons. Right now, we already have over 7 million subscribers, wherein lessons, homework, quizzes, tips to learners and to teachers are all in the DepEd Commons and are accessible even to the parents. So we have instances, Mr. President, of parents who are abroad and who are monitoring what is happening to their children. They also go to the DepEd Commons and check on how their children are.
Para magkaroon ng free access sa paggamit ng DepEd Commons, nakipag-ugnayan si Yusek Aling Pascua sa Globe at Smart para mas maging accessible para sa lahat ang platform. Ito ay alinsunod sa apela ni Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones sa NTC at DICT na suportahan ang mga mag-aaral at guro sa panahon ng quarantine.
The DepEd Commons is an online platform now that we have launched during the ECQ. At the moment, it is a repository of all open educational resources coming from teachers of DepEd. It is a work in progress, and we intend to collate all available materials so that we can enrich the platform and we can make available these materials to all learners and to all teachers.
Para makalagin sa DepEd Commons, kailangan pumunta sa commons.deped.gov.ph. Gawin ang mga sumusunod. Una, piliin kung ikaw ay nasa public o private school. Pangalawa, i-type ang school name o ang school ID. Pangatlo, piliin kung ikaw ay student o teacher. Pang-apat, i-type ang pangalan at email address. Optional para sa mga mag-aaral ang paglalagay ng email address. Samantala, Para sa mga magulang na tinuturing facilitator ay maaaring mag-login bilang teacher. Panglima, i-click ang Save button.
Magaling! Nasa loob ka na ng ating DepEd Commons. Kapag ikaw ay nakalogin, makikita mo sa kaliwang bahagi ang mga menu. Sa Spotlight, makikita ang mga featured learning materials mula sa mga stakeholders at partners ng DepEd. Ito ay naglalaman ng paksa tulad ng cyber safety, DOST courseware, Oplan Kalusugan, DRRM, storybooks, at math vlog lessons.
Ang DepEd Commons ay saklaw din ng ating ALS learners, kaya makikita dito na maaaring i-download ang mga modules na naglalaman ng interactive formats upang mas maging kaigay-gaya ang pag-aaral at makuha ang interes ng mga ALS learners. Sa mga susunod na araw ay madadagdagan ang mga kagamitan dito bilang paghahanda sa pasukan.
Ang Learning Management System o LMS ay isang software application na ginagamit sa maraming paaralan sa mundo, lalo na sa kolehiyo at malalaking pamantasan. Sa pangunguna ng ICTS Educational Technology Unit, ang DepEd LMS ay nabuo upang maging suportang kagamitan sa DepEd Commons.
Ang DepEd Learning Management System ay para sa lahat. Ito ay gagamitin ng mga guro upang makalikha ng isang maayos na structured ng pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga aralin.
Tayo ay may humigit kumulang sa 400,000 teachers na may kaalaman sa paggamit ng DepEd Learning Management System o LMS. Patuloy pa din ang training na ginagawa sa pamamagitan ng webinar sessions.
Narito ang iba't ibang katangian ng DepEd Learning Management System na siyang bahagi ng programang Digital Rise ng kasalukuyang administrasyon. Inclusive education. Mayroon itong accessibility features for the blind and deaf learners. Interactive assessment na kagaya ng PISA upang maihanda ang mga mag-aaral sa ganitong klase ng teknolohiya sa pandaigdigang pagsusulit. Multimedia compatible. Mayroon itong kakayahan na mag-attach ng audio, video, at maging mga larawan. Automatic checking and grading system. Hindi na kailangang mag-check ng guro sapagkat ang system mismo ang mag-check. Compatible sa lahat ng mga devices, maging ito ay smartphones, tablet, laptop, desktop, computer.
Naranasan ko ng maiwan. Hindi ko na mabilang kung ilang beses akong nakiusap hanggang sa maubos ang pangungusap. Naisip ko na ring sumuko dahil sa sunod-sunod na bagyo. Parang walang katapusan itong kalbaryo. Saan nga ba ako patungo? Saan ba ang dulo nito? Sa paglalakbay, muntik na akong huminto. Pero sinalubong mo ko. Bumungad sa akin yung mga mata mong gustong matuto. Ang mga kamay mong sabik sumulat. Ang mga labi mong nais bumigkas ng mga salitang nakakapawi ng pagod. Tinatalo mo itong lungkot at takot. Binibigyan mo ng sagot ang mga katanungan sa aking puso.
Masampat, abi-abi, mga anak.
Masampat pala, abi-abi, mo.
Nasa dami ng alinlangan ko't tanong sa mundo, ito ang nag-iisang sigurado. Mahal ko ang pagtuturo. Ito ang nagbibigay buhay sa aking pagkatao. At ang mga pangarap nila, ang aking ligaya. Minsan na rin akong naiwan. Kaya't sisikapin kong hindi mo ito maranasan.